And now, it's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. Gosh, 12 years I've been on this program, selling real estate for almost 20 here in the Charleston area. We've done about 1,500 transactions locally, about $1 billion worth of real estate that we've represented over that time. So we help you understand what's going on in the world of real estate here locally. Of course, we tie in regional and national news. We compare that to how we're doing in our little slice of paradise here in Charleston, South Carolina. But this show specifically, this is going to be a strategy show, right? We do this every once in a while where markets shift or there's just an unknown kind of element somewhere behind the scenes in the real estate market. And it's tough to put your finger on it. It's tough to figure out kind of what kind of market we're really in right now. We're not used to it. And so we've got the Fed meeting next week. Will rates come down next week after the Fed meets? Is it going to be a quarter point? Is it going to be a half a point? I think they're going to do something. How's that going to impact buyers and sellers in this market? What can we expect to see in the coming months as we transition into the fall market, which is usually a slower time of year? So I want to just go through a few different strategies, whether you're a buyer or seller, and just kind of talk through some things. Now, everybody's kind of commenting right now on the Fed and what they're going to do next week with regard to rates. And I think we can hopefully all agree that there's going to be a cut. We just don't know by how much. Is it going to be a quarter point? Is it going to be a half a point? It's probably not going to be more. But what will then happen with mortgage rates as a result of that? And I think it's first important to understand that whenever the Fed cuts rates, that does not have a equal shift in 30-year fixed interest rates for mortgages. They're not the same thing. They're not directly comparable. Now, they mirror them closely, and they ebb and flow as the markets change. And to an extent, those rates have already dropped in anticipation of a rate cut because we're benefiting from some lower rates now. We're in the kind of low to mid sixes, depending upon what kind of mortgage product you're after. And then, of course, your credit score, your down payment, your debt to income ratio, so on and so forth. So what's going to happen with prices is the question, right? When these rates come down, when inevitably interest rates come down, what will then happen to the market? Well, of course, it's going to increase affordability, right? Buyers are going to be able to afford more home for the same price because that's been, if you really sift through all the numbers and things like interest rates and you really focus on what you get for the monthly payment that you can afford, the big thing that's changed is buyers went from looking at maybe a 4-bed, 3-bath, 2,800 square foot home with really nice finishes to a 3-bed, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot home that might need a little bit of work. And so for them, it just doesn't make sense to buy something that they're not happy with. So they wait. And that's what we have a lot of right now. We have a lot of people that are just on the sidelines getting ready to get into the market. So if by dropping rates, we then see a surge in demand, how has supply over the course of the past few months kept up with that? And let's say that we have all these buyers that flood the market. What is then going to happen to the existing inventory we have? Are we on trend to put enough more homes on the market to have these scales be somewhat balanced? Or are we going to see another run of appreciation? A lot of people are saying that when these rates come down and when buyers enter the market, prices will go up again. I'm not sure on that. Just in complete honesty, yes, our market is still plagued to an extent by a lack of availability. There's not a lot of homes for sale. So, locally, we have 2.8 months supply of inventory, meaning if nothing else hit the market in less than 3 months, we'd be sold out of homes. A balanced market is about 6 months worth of inventory, 6 to 8 months, depending upon price point, location, so on and so forth. But let's just say 6. So we're still in a seller's market. And if you look at the rate at which we're putting new properties on the market, year to date, we've put about 14% more properties on the market than we have this time, leading up to August in 2023. We've put about 17,000 properties on the market in comparison to a little under 15,000 properties on the market. So the question is, are we keeping up with the inventory? Is the market kind of shifting more toward a buyer's market? Well, if you look at, as an example, the Housing Affordability Index, That's a key indicator, and we've been following that on this show for a long time. And if you have heard me talk about it before, it's essentially the number that we use to determine whether a market is affordable or not. So right now, our housing affordability index here in Charleston is 76, which means that the median income for Charleston is only 76% of what is necessary to afford the median priced home in this market with a 20% down and at today's interest rates. So as you can see, there are a lot of people that just are not able to afford homes at these prices. I mean, our prices are at $420,000 as our median sales price. And that has gone up 4.2% compared to this time last year, which is interesting in that we've actually exactly mirrored what has happened with prices nationally. Nationally, prices are up 4.2%. So are we. But nationally, there's 4 months supply of inventory, which is very close to a normal balanced market. Whereas locally, we only have 2.8 months of inventory. So we're more of a seller's market than the national market, quote unquote. But, the question that we're getting a lot is, what happens to a real estate market during an election year? If you look at November sales, just in general, November's not a great month for closings in real estate. It's one of the slower months of the year. So not only are November sales slow, but during election years, November sales are especially slow. There is an overall impact to the market. And you, of course, have a lot of people that are sidelined by important policy decisions that could alter their plans to buy or sell a home. Do they liquidate their investment properties? Do they hold on to them? Are we getting rid of 1031 tax-deferred exchanges? How's the tax code going to change? There's a lot of questions in real estate, especially on the investment side, the acquisition and the hold side, on what the tax policy is going to be. But if you look at what actually happens in the year after the election, in 9 of the past 11 election years, sales actually increased from the year before. So every year after the election year, we had more closings than in the election year itself. In 9 of the past 11 elections, 7 of the past 8 elections, prices have gone up. And then from July to November, if you look at interest rates for mortgages, from July to November, rates have dropped in the past 8 of the past 11 election years. There's a lot of great data on this. One thing that I think is really important to talk about just in terms of market dynamics before we take a quick break is consumer confidence. Right? Consumer sentiment is something that I'm watching extremely closely right now because a lot of people are just unsure of the direction of this market. They feel like it's really teeter-tottering right now. And the feeling that I describe that people have right now is, let's say that you've gotten on a roller coaster and you're in the front seat and you've been climbing this hill. And now, when that roller coaster gets really slow right before it goes down for that first big drop, that's kind of the feeling people have in their stomach. I think we still have some scar tissue from the 2008 market, and rightfully so. But the VP of Fannie Mae and the deputy chief economist, Mark Palum, recently gave a quote after the most recent survey on consumer sentiment, which came out a little earlier this month. And I just want to read this quote because it gives you an idea of kind of where we are as a market right now. So here's the quote. Despite significantly greater optimism that mortgage rates and home prices will move in a more favorable direction for potential home buyers, most consumers remain apprehensive about the market and continue to point to the lack of affordability and supply as the chief reasons for their pessimism. On a national level, housing sentiment was largely unchanged in August, despite some positive developments for affordability, including a meaningful decline in actual mortgage rate and an uptick in home listings in certain markets, particularly in the Sun Belt. However, our survey did capture some interesting regional variation, likely related to supply. In August, 56% of survey respondents from the South indicated that it's a good time to sell, which was a decrease of 5 percentage points month over month, where if you look at the Northeast as an example, it's 80% believe now is a good time to sell. And so they say that this likely reflects, in part, the wide geographic variation in new home construction activity. In the regions that had a stronger construction response from the pandemic, our latest survey data suggests that sellers may be losing some of their negotiating power due to increased supply. And so what I'll say, and I'll stop the quote there, that is true. There are a lot of homes that we've sold in the past 12 months in which we are competing with new construction. And what does new construction have to offer? They have incentives, right? Closing costs incentives, interest rate buy downs. You could buy a new construction home and lock in at a 4.25% mortgage for your first year, and then it's 5.25 for the next year, and then it goes to 6.25, but hopefully by then you refinance. I mean, there's a lot of incentive there, and it's financing based. So you as a seller absolutely have the ability to compete with these types of builders, but you can't beat them on the price necessarily, right? Because a home that has been lived in, that's used, for lack of a better term, is not going to appraise for the exact same house, exact same size and square footage that's brand new and has never been lived in. It's like when you buy a car at a dealership and drive it off the lot, it drops in value a little bit. To an extent, the same thing happens with real estate, not nearly as severe, of course, but when you compare two homes side to side, a home that has been lived in is not going to appraise for the exact same home that is brand new. So you have to take that into consideration in your strategy. And as it relates to discussing strategy on selling, when we come back, I want to tell the story of a house that I just sold where the sellers hired another agent first. It was their friend, and so I'm going to be sensitive to this in this story, but I want to help you understand what happens sometimes when folks put their home on the market, it doesn't go as planned, and they have to make some tough decisions. Do they stick with the agent that they're with? Or do they make a change? And what should they expect to be done differently? Or better yet, what should they expect the first time around? So I'm going to tell you in this kind of case study of sorts what I did differently. So stick around. That'll be an interesting piece for folks that are maybe thinking about selling their house. So, and if you'd like to reach out to me in that regard, first of all, get a copy of our free guide, the most complete home seller guide in Charleston. And if you want a copy of that guide, it's about 50 pages, but it's chock full of information that I've personally written about all different facets of the process of selling a house and how you can save money all along the way. So if you'd like a free copy of that guide, text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Thanks again for joining me. This is really a show based on strategy, right? I first set the tone with regard to what's happening in the market right now. We've got a few different folks saying that prices are going to go up this year. By how much? It kind of depends on who you ask. If it's Fannie Mae, they're saying prices are going to go up 6.1% year over year this year. The Mortgage Bankers Association is 4.1%. National Association of Realtors is 3.8%. Right now we're sitting at a 4.2% appreciation on the year compared to last year. So even with the challenges that we have with affordability, and even with the fact that prices have gone up and listings have increased a little bit, I think that there's still enough demand out there to have it not really change the market from a seller's market to even a balanced market. There's behaviors that make it more challenging for a seller to sell in this market. But I want to go through that because I recently sold a home where the seller initially listed it with their friend. And so I want to tell you about kind of just this story because I think this happens to a lot of people, and I think it's helpful for those that are listening that are maybe thinking about selling their house because there's a lot of real estate agents in this area. There's 8,000 real estate agents in the Charleston market last time I checked. And I've been saying this for a few years, so this has probably changed. But as of a few years ago, we were the second most saturated real estate market in the country, aside from, I think, LA. But because everybody there is a real estate agent, why not? Can be an actor, a realtor, a techie, whatever. So this seller hires their friend. It sits on the market for a few weeks, and they realize kind of over the course of that few week period that, you know what, things aren't really going the way I thought they were going to go or the way I was told they were going to go. They had an initial spurt of showings. They did an open house, and then showings over after about a 2-week period really started to slow down. They went from having a few a week to like one a week. And this is a $1 million home in Mount Pleasant where you should be getting way more than one showing per week. And so after a few weeks, they decide to drop the price because they're like, hey, what do we do? They say, really, let's just drop the price. So they drop it, and they drop it by a pretty good amount. I mean, not a small percentage. It was what I would call a severe price adjustment. It then sparked another showing or two, and then nothing for 2 weeks, no more showings. And they're kind of wondering, why is that? Why? What's going on? I looked at it because these are also friends of mine. And after, about, I'd say 6 weeks, they had made the decision to terminate their relationship with their other friend and hire me. What makes it interesting is that both agents live in the neighborhood. So there was some politics at play there. But at the end of the day, these folks just wanted their home sold, right? They wanted to work with a quality agent. And so when I took over and we ultimately, in the first week, I had 14 showings, multiple offers, sold it. And we just closed on the property. So it was a 30-day sale with a cash offer. It was a great deal. So the question is, what did I do differently, right? How is it that one agent's results can be so much different from another agent's results? Because isn't the market, right? That's what I think a lot of people assume is, hey, it doesn't necessarily matter how good your real estate agent is. If it's visible, people are going to come and see it. And I have never relied on that strategy in and of itself to sell real estate. I'm what I call a proactive agent. I don't like the idea of just tapping into the MLS, right? So when you list with a real estate agent, the property goes in the MLS, and then once it's in the MLS, it then syndicates to all of these different websites, right? Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, Realtor.com, Homes.com, you name it. Every agent's website, every brokerage's website. It's on thousands of websites within a few minutes of it going in the MLS. And for most agents, that is all they feel they need to do, because in their mind, it doesn't make sense to pay to attract buyers to their specific listing because they're going to see it anyways on these websites. Now, to an extent, that's true, right? I can't create more online traffic than Zillow, okay? Their budget is way too big. I am a drop in the bucket compared to Zillow from a online traffic perspective. So it makes no sense for me to compete with them in that regard, but I can certainly invest in marketing your specific home to the right group of people. So the first thing we did is we created an ad for the property. And then I went out with the help of a company that I'm partnered with, and we identified the people demographically, geographically, and through online behavior that we thought might be a buyer for this house. And so it's really amazing what these companies can do now. They can say, all right, well, let's look for folks that meet these certain demographics that have looked at real estate in that area within the past few months and that are displaying online behavior that leads us to believe they're getting ready to make a move, right? Like, who's researching schools in different zip codes? That's an unusual behavior unless they're planning on moving to that area. And the more you pick up on this and the more you understand the actions that people take before they move, the more you can create these, target markets or systematically approach marketing to people that might be looking for a specific listing. And that's exactly what we did with this house. And that is one of the reasons why we got so much traffic on the property, is that we went out directly to the buyers that we thought might be interested in the home and marketed to them and pulled them into our ecosystem rather than them going through Zillow and being assigned to some random agent to show them the property that knows nothing about it. And that's the problem with some of these companies is, as a seller, you think that having visibility on Zillow is a good thing, and it is, but they don't understand the process. If a buyer is interested in that property, they're going to call into Zillow, and Zillow is going to assign some random agent that's just paying for opportunities in that zip code, right? So they don't know anything about the house. They have no knowledge of that specific property other than what's on the MLS. So that's a problem, right? From a marketing perspective, you want to create as big and as wide a net as possible to catch the people that are actually interested in the property. It's not even so much, and I know I'm getting a little nerdy right now, but the problem in our industry isn't just lead generation, right? It's not just the ability for a buyer to use their marketing prowess to identify new prospects. It's their ability to convert them into actual clients. You know, the average time it takes for an agent to respond to a lead is 36 hours. That sucks. That is not good. And so the challenge that a lot of agents have is that, yeah, there's marketing that is at play that's not necessarily by their design. It's just because of the fact that it was put into the MLS. But from there, they don't have any control over how those interested buyers get in touch with agents. So that's what we, as a team, the Brian Beatty team, try to control as much as possible. I want them following our sales protocols and process and not being subject to some lead provider that is going to dish out that interested buyer to some agent that knows nothing about the property. So rant over there, but that's one of the things we did is we did target marketing. And they didn't know that that's something you could do because they didn't interview agents when they put the property on the market. And so that's a big takeaway. Interview agents, understand what agents are offering, get a complete picture of the value proposition that they bring to the table, which is a combination of experience, marketing, and I think accountability and reputation, right? And that's why we talked last show about the fact that, you know, look, all these agents out there are some are really struggling with the new processes that have been put in place. Some are doing just fine with it, like us, because we've kind of been doing this the same way that the new rules tell us to do it anyway. So it's not really a change in our business. But I think a lot of agents are just struggling right now, and they're starting to kind of shrink up a little bit. They're going into hibernation, right? The market's not great for a lot of agents. And so this is when agents start cutting services, cutting costs, cutting people and support, and saying, I'm just going to start doing this myself. And the more they take back, the worse at times their service can become, because now they've got too many things that they're doing and they're not as focused as they could be as it may be a team where we have specialized roles for different parts of the process like we do. So, what did I do differently? The first thing that I did was I actually marketed the property proactively to potential buyers that might be interested in that house. It was also vacant, so I virtually staged the house, and it made a huge difference. It looked so much better once we virtually staged it, and it's not that expensive to do that versus putting real furniture in a house. It's going to be a few $1,000 depending upon how many rooms you do. But the point is for people to understand how that space can be lived in, and I think pictures satisfy that issue that some folks have where they just can't really envision the space. They're just not great at placing furniture, and some people have the gift, some don't. Might as well use virtual staging to either declutter a current space or add furniture to a vacant space so that those people can see that home in the best light. And then I would say the last thing that I did was I communicated better. And that's a big problem that folks have with agents is they sign agreements with agents, and then it seems like for the duration of that relationship, the client has to chase down an agent to figure out what's going on, to get status updates, to ask what's happened, what are you doing now, what have you done, what's next, what's the plan, especially for the folks that haven't sold their home yet, or those that have been through this process before. You know exactly what I'm talking about, that feeling and frustration of not even being given the courtesy of normal updates, even if there's nothing necessarily to update, just to check in. To say, hey, here's what's going on, here's what's happened, here's what's going to happen next. I mean, basic one-on-one communication, it's the easiest part of our job, but for some reason, it's the one thing that we get the worst reputation for because most agents just aren't proactive enough with it. That's why we have a communication guarantee in our listing agreement that says, hey, we have to communicate with you at least once per week, and if at any time we don't, and you're not happy with our level of service, you can fire us. You know, we don't want to lose your business. We are incentivized, frankly, and held accountable to earning your business over time because at any point in time, you can fire us. And obviously, we don't want that to happen. So, for those that are thinking about selling their home, I think it's really important to get it right the first time because what we're going to talk about next are some changes that I see coming in the next few months, right? It's going to be an interesting next, I'd say 90-ish days for our real estate market, and I want to help prepare you for that road ahead. But if you want to reach out to me, first of all, get a copy of our free guide, the most comprehensive home seller guide in Charleston. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065. You can call or text me at that number. It comes straight to me. Or you can check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. I always like to take a moment and just say how much I appreciate the listeners of this show. I love getting the calls from folks that just need some random help or advice because it tells me that we're doing a good job here on the show. We're providing quality, reliable, trustworthy information to help shape your understanding of the real estate market so that when it comes time for you to buy or sell or invest in real estate or maybe even start it as a career, you're an informed consumer. You really understand what's happening in this market and how to take advantage, right? I always like for my clients and I to win, right? Win the strategy, win the negotiation, and be happy with the process from start to finish, So thank you for listening to this program and for taking time to educate yourself because real estate is so important. So much money can be won and lost depending upon who you partner with, what you know, and what you don't. So good for you for educating yourself. And hopefully we try and make it a little entertaining along the way. I want to talk a little bit about just some trends that I see unfolding here in the next few months. I think some things for you to be aware of if you're going to be a buyer or a seller in this market. And the first is that, first of all, we all know that this is just an emotional time for this country. I think everybody's emotionally charged up right now. We've got some pretty big things going on in our world that will be decided in November. And a lot of people are really stuck on what will happen in November before they make any real estate plans. And that's understandable. It's, I think, something that folks that aren't really motivated to buy or sell typically say because they can. There is no urgency associated with their situation, and that's fine. I think a lot of agents really get frustrated with folks that decide not to do something right now, right? Because, if you think about messaging from real estate agents, it's always right now is the best time to buy or sell. Pick a market, and I guarantee you'll find marketing out there that this is a great time to buy or sell real estate. And so that's just how agents that's just what they do, is tell you that, hey, right now is the best time. It might not be. I think for a lot of folks, it's not. And that's obvious because, the sales that are occurring nationally are trending down. It's going to be another quote unquote slow year in real estate. But what's actually going on behind the scenes? Let's say that you are a seller right now. What can you expect when you go on the market, and what can you expect from from buyers and their behavior? How are they going to act? Well, the first thing is that there are going to be a lot of sellers that put their property on the market overpriced. It doesn't really matter what market you're in, buyer market, seller market, balance market. There's always going to be overpriced listings. That's a given. That's a fact. And so you're still going to see a lot of sellers overprice their property initially, and then at some point, a few weeks or a month or so later, they're going to start that series of price adjustments. The problem is if the market is flat and they're overpriced, what will likely happen is they're going to need to be either at or slightly below the market in order to sell it because of the days on market, because it's been on the market for a while. Buyers are very opportunistic right now, and they're tough negotiators. So for the folks that select a strategy that comes with the potential for a longer days on market, just be aware of the fact that those buyers are going to use that against you. The best position you can put yourself in as a seller, in my opinion, is to list the property at what it's worth. Take the time to really prepare the market or prepare the property for the market. Let's make sure that we've got, great curb appeal, that the power washing is done, that we've cut the grass. We've done the things to make the house look as good as we can make it look. Now, I'm not saying that we go in there and we renovate, right? And before you make any repairs to your home, please, please, please call me or call a real estate agent, because we can tell you what makes sense to do to your house, what doesn't make sense to do to your house, and then what the resulting return on investment is going to be. That's the whole point, right? Is to save money or make money. No one is interested in making repairs if it's going to ultimately cost them money, except for if it's going to cost more money with the buyer than it would be you controlling that cost. And so here's what I mean by that. And this is why I say it's so important for sellers to contact us before they start doing a bunch of work to their house. We have contractors that we trust that do stuff for us on almost a weekly basis. Almost every day, a contractor's out somewhere doing something to a property that we have listed or under contract, that we manage as a property management company or that I own personally. So we've got the people and we know how much it should cost. The problem is a lot of sellers invite us over when they feel they're ready to introduce the property to the world, not just the real estate agent, but to buyers as well. And they've spent the money. So allow us to help you potentially save money by determining what to do versus what not to do, and then who's going to do the work. Because if you wait until the end, until the buyer gets their home inspection, and they then send their contractor out to determine how much it's going to cost, I can almost guarantee you their quote's going to be higher than my quote. And so if they're using that as a basis for negotiations, you've theoretically lost money because you don't have the information on your side. You don't have the upper hand. So that's why we spend so much time in the beginning getting all of our ducks in a row so that we're prepared for the process ahead. But if sellers intentionally overprice their property and then they stay on the market longer than normal, then it's going to create, it's that blood in the water that the buyers that are the sharks right now really want, because they've been eager for anything they can use in the form of negotiability. And for the past several years, they haven't had it. It's been a seller's market. So now they're overcompensating. Something to take into consideration. I also think that for the next few months, as the market slows down a little bit, sellers, I think, are going to be more open-minded to creatively arranged contracts. And really what I mean by that is that I think sellers are going to be more open to home sale contingencies. So if you're the type of person that needs to sell your home in order to buy another, but you don't really want to put your home on the market until you find something you like, I've had shows where I've talked about a bunch of different ways of approaching that process, because there is no just one way. And go on YouTube and find those videos, because it's really, I think, informative in terms of all the different options you have as a seller if you want to sell your home and buy another. But I think that in the next few months, as this market slows down a little bit, as demand drops a little bit, sellers are going to be more open-minded to those types of offers. So if you need to sell your home before buying another, now might be a really good time to get out there and look. I think that for the folks that, again, price it right, it's marketed well, they've taken the time to improve the condition of the property, or at least to clean it up before it's put on the market, they're likely going to get multiple offers. I mean, we're still seeing it on several of our listings. What is going to happen, though, is a lot of agents out there, like I mentioned last segment, they're kind of going into hibernation mode. It's been a tough 2 years for real estate agents, and not all of them are great financial planners, right? They spend what they make. And I've never had a year in real estate where where I had one income. It's never been the same. So it does take some planning and some patience for agents that are having a tough time right now. But I think that in the grand scheme of things, you're going to start to see agents really start to shrink up their exposure, right? They're going to start cutting off some lead sources. They're maybe going to get rid of some support. They're going to take back more of that work for themselves. And of course, when that happens, that's when service starts to go down, because they've just got too much on their plate and they're doing administrative tasks rather than doing sales-based tasks. And I always tell folks on my team and those that I train, or that when I was a coach, an international real estate coach, the thing that I think is incredibly important is to understand that, and this applies to a lot of those that are listening now, I'm in two businesses. I'm in the business of helping people buy and sell real estate, and I'm in the business of finding people to help buy and sell real estate, right? Every great company out there is good at lead generation. And so that's what so many agents are struggling with right now, is not just knowing how to navigate a market like this, but find people to navigate, to help navigate the market like this. And so I think you're going to see a lot of agents that are just, frankly, there are going to be a lot of agents that are on the brink of quitting here in the next 90 days. They're going to let their license lapse at the end of the year. They might go into referral mode. And so there's the possibility that you could be that agent's last client or one of them. Now, that puts folks in a precarious situation. But I think it just goes back to really interviewing your agent and making sure that they're in it for the long haul, and that you've got the peace of mind that they're going to be there for you when you need them. And, as far as all the other requirements that you might have of the agent that you list your property with, you can find that list of questions and how to interview an agent in my guide. So if you want to get your hands on that guide, the most comprehensive home seller guide in Charleston, just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. That's text the word guide to 843-800-0065. You can call or text me on that number. It comes straight to me. Or just visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. So I want to finish the show with something that we don't talk too often about on this program, but I recently flipped a property. Yes, flips are still a thing. Yes, they still work well. Yes, you can still make good money off of them. So I want to just talk you through the process really quickly, because I know it's something that a lot of people are interested in, but there's a lot of money at risk. And it's not one of those things that you just kind of stumble into. You really have to be prepared and understand the road ahead so that you don't lose a bunch of money. And so that's I want to talk you through that process for just a few minutes here. And so the first thing that I'll say with regard to investment real estate is that we talk with a lot of investors and a lot of people that I think like the idea of being an investor, but don't really actually ever invest in anything. And so the first thing that we really coach people through if they're new to real estate investments is we have to understand the parameters that we're looking for opportunities within. What locations are we considering? What price points are we looking at? How much money do we have to play with? And then what is our investment criteria? And that is the most important question that I ask of folks, and probably the question that most often is unanswered because people don't know. And so if I'm going to invest in real estate, then I should have a benchmark, right? A line where if this investment opportunity does not make X, I don't go for it. Or better yet, if I'm looking at a property and I know how much I think I can sell it for and about how much it's going to cost me to renovate it and hold it and buy it, the holding costs, then how much can I afford to buy this property for and still achieve my required rate of return? And so we coach people through just the basics of that thought process. And then, of course, we get the commitment as to whether or not they're actually serious about properties. And if we're working together, then, for any investor that I work with, I'm not just setting you up with an email and sending you property alerts. I'm sending you investment opportunities, meaning I have looked at the property. I've analyzed what I think I can sell it for once renovated. I've analyzed how much I think it's going to cost to get it into that condition. And then we're going to purchase the property for a percentage point below that amount, of course, in order to achieve our rate of return, right? And so that's exactly what I did on this property most recently. I knew there are two prices that I always look at when I'm going to flip a property. What is my sell now price? The price that I know I can sell it for that price. And then what's this, hey, if I find the perfect buyer, what does that price look like? The kind of swing for the fences price that so many investors list initially at. Well, I understood what those two numbers were first. And looking at this opportunity, I had a very, very reasonable assurance that I could sell the property for, X. Of course, I wanted to try and get a little bit more because we did a really nice job with the property. But I knew even if I had to sell it at the sell now price, I was still going to make the money that I wanted to make and have it be a safe and intelligent investment for me. So, of course, we had contractors out to the property to determine what we thought it was going to cost to renovate the property. And then I take that budget and I add 10% because you inevitably run into things as you're doing a large scale renovation that might need to be done that just are things that don't meet the eye when you walk through it or even when you do the home inspection. Well, on this particular deal, since I knew what I could sell it for as a sell now price, and I knew what I could renovate it for with a little bit of a cushion for some unknown, and I knew how much it was going to cost me to buy it, how much it was going to cost me to hold it, right? Landscaping, utilities, insurance, so on and so forth. And I know how much it's going to cost me to sell it, right? Commissions, closing costs, attorney's fees, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, everything that's left is my profit. And is that profit enough at that purchase price to make sense out of the deal? And of course, for me, that answer was yes. And so in investment real estate, there's something called the 70% rule. And so here's a really easy way of looking at it. Let's say that a property is going to sell once renovated for $500,000. And in order to get it into that condition, you need to put in $100,000. All right. So you can, when it's done, it's worth $500,000, but it needs $100,000 in order for it to get to that price. So you take $500,000 and you deduct $100,000 from it. That's $400,000. You then take 70% of that $400,000, and that number is your purchase price. So 70% of that'd be $280,000. So that's your purchase price if you need to put $100,000 into it in order to then sell it, renovate it, and make enough of a profit based on that model to make the investment make sense. And the reality is there are opportunities out there like this right now. So if you're an investor and you're thinking of selling a property, or if you yourself own a property and you're thinking of selling it to an investor for a quick cash sale, either I myself might buy it, or I certainly have a network of folks that will buy it. So reach out to me in either way. Or if you want to just get top dollars for your house and not deal with selling to an investor, there's that option as well. Either way, give me a call and we'd love to help. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. Thanks so much, Charleston. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.